Hey everyone, it's Marvin. Thanks so much for listening to Books and Boba. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that Books and Boba just launched our Patreon to help support our future endeavors. Rira and I have been running Books and Boba for the last 6.5 years, and we've always talked about wanting to do more, including expanding our content offerings, being able to go to book events and do more coverage. And so to help us get closer to those ambitions, we started a Patreon to help us grow and to better support books by Asian and Asian American authors. We are offering 2 tiers for our Patreon. The first is our regular Boba member coming in at $3 a month, which will give you access to our brand new Books and Boba Discord server so you can engage with your fellow Books and Boba Club members and also Rira and myself in real time. This is where we'll be aiming to move the bulk of our book club discussions, but rest assured we'll still have a presence on Goodreads as well. And our premium tier is our Honey Boba member tier coming in at $5 a month, where in addition to access to our Discord server, you'll also get access to our monthly Boba Chats, a bonus podcast where Rira and I and some guests will get together each month and have a more casual discussion on stuff that may or may not be book related, as well as answer some listener Q&A. Honey Boba members will also have access to a poll to help decide an official Books and Boba book pick once per quarter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, support Books and Boba on Patreon by going to patreon.com/booksandboba. As always, Rira and I really appreciate your support. All right, thanks for listening, and I'm on with the show.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Ye.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we are here today for our mid-month book news check-in for April 2021. April, right? It's April, right?
It is April. Okay. Wow, time has no meaning.
Oh my God, we're like a third of the way through the year already.
Can you believe that like API Heritage Month is next month? Oh, actually, not even like next month. It's like in 2 weeks.
In a few weeks, yeah. Yeah, we should probably figure out what we're doing for that.
How about we not say that we don't have anything planned for our listeners? I feel like all of us should just take a month off. Like, after all the stuff that happened to Asian Americans this past year and the first quarter of this year, we need a month-long vacation.
No, we have an excuse. Why are you taking the month off? It's Asian American Heritage Month. We deserve time off.
But we are here to talk about book deals and book news in the publishing world of Asian American literature.
Yeah, we got a bunch of book deal announcements to go through, so let's get started. Rira, what's our first deal?
So our first deal is Disney Hyperion acquired world rights to In Every Generation by Kendara Blake, the author of the 3 Dark Crowns series. In Every Generation is a new YA trilogy set in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe. In a world with many slayers, the new Sunnydale rebuilt on top of the old Sunnydale, one girl, and a werewolf and a demon, must stop the Hellmouth from reopening and defeat the forces of evil bent on destroying everything and everyone she loves, including her aunt Buffy. First book is set for winter 2022.
Wow. So like Buffy the Next Generation.
Yeah. Did you watch Buffy?
I watched on and off. I wasn't a dedicated watcher, but I remember enjoying it when I did.
I think I watched all of the seasons except for the last one because I heard about the ending and I was like, nope, that's not in my canon. I'm not going to watch that.
I know it got weird, and not that we should mention his name, but the guy who created it, he's
the worst.
Well, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's also a bad human being with all of the harassment and like the way he treated his writers and also his actresses. Horrible person. We're not going to name him on this podcast, but I am very glad that Kendara Blake, a writer of color, is continuing this universe and taking all the good things from it and making a series out of it.
I mean, her 3 Dark Crown series is about like badass women, Like,
Yeah, she's the perfect writer for this.
yeah. All right, next up, Random House Graphic acquired Next Stop by debut author Debbie Fong. This middle grade contemporary graphic novel follows Pia as she deals with her brother's death and embarks on a magical road trip that changes her life. Publication is planned for 2023.
Ooh, a road trip book, but it has magic in it.
Yeah, and middle grade contemporary graphic novel. I love that we're, making more content for younger readers because it's never too early to have representation in media.
And also, graphic novels are a great way for non-readers or hesitant readers to get into reading.
Yeah.
I know, like, growing up, a lot of teachers are like, that's not, like, comics are not reading, manga's not reading, but it is. So
It is.
I'm glad that, like, we're seeing more graphic novels for kids.
I once wrote a book report on a JRPG, and my teacher said, that's not, video games don't have real stories. I'm like, what?
Oh, what?
I probably read like 10 novels worth of text from this game, okay?
Yeah, I mean, like most video games, they're like 600 pages in script writing. Like I remember there was a class on video game writing, like when I graduated, and I was like, why did I not get to take this class? Sounds amazing, but like video games have changed a lot over the years. Anyway, next up, Little Brown bought at auction This Is Not My Home, as well as an untitled second book by debut author-illustrator duo Vivian Chang and Eugenia Yo. This picture book features a girl whose family moves to Taiwan and learns how a new place can become her home. Publication is set for winter 2023.
Yeah, that sounds cute.
Moving back to the motherland, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah, like that's rough on a kid.
I like that there's stories for third culture kids too, because that's a perspective in our community that we don't usually get a perspective into. So yeah, congrats to Vivian and Eugenia. Next up, Knopf has acquired world rights to A Garden in My Hands, written by Mira Sram and illustrated by Sanya Prabhat. In this picture book, an Indian American girl's mother applies intricate henna designs to her hands as she recounts family memories and stories. Publication is planned for spring 2023.
So next up, Levine Querido acquired in an exclusive submission world rights to 49 Days by New York Times Metropolitan Diary illustrator Agnes Lee. This YA graphic novel debut is inspired by a Buddhist belief regarding death and the afterlife, and is about a Korean-American girl who has died and must journey for 49 days. Publication is scheduled for 2023.
Ooh.
49 days. Yeah, that's like a Korean funeral thing. I'm so guilty because I don't know anything about Korean funerals, despite the fact that like I've had people die in my family and I went to their funerals.
Yeah, I mean, usually there's like a funeral director that walks you through the process. So I know the steps, but if you ask me to like do it from my own memory, I would have no idea how to conduct any of these ceremonies.
I know that like with both of my grandfathers passed away. For one grandfather, it was like a very traditional burial, like with like the white hanboks and like the parade and like the traditional grave. And then with my other grandfather, it was like very modern because it was in Seoul. So yeah, I don't know how like funeral culture has like retained some of the traditions nowadays. But I'm like really interested in reading this book because maybe I'll be able to learn more about funeral customs and sounds, because it's a graphic novel, I'm really interested in seeing the illustrations as well.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Philimo bought New School Skirmish, the first in the Airi Sano Prankmaster General middle grade series of books by Zoe Tokushige. The first book features 6th grade prankster Airi Sano, a Japanese-American military brat who always gets in trouble at school, until she meets a teacher who gets to the heart of her troubles. Unearthing an unaddressed learning disability and a spirited kid trying to find her way when the road keeps changing. Publication is set for summer 2022.
This sounds interesting because it's about like learning about a disability. I feel like with a lot of schools, with the structure and the rigor, not a lot of accommodations for kids with learning disabilities, and they're usually labeled as troublemakers. So I think this is a pretty important book in the canon of middle grade books.
Yeah. Now that we know more about the different ways people learn, it's cool to see these perspectives get also represented on the page.
All right, next up, Little Brown bought world rights to bake infinite pie with X plus Y by acclaimed mathematician and author Eugenia Cheng, and it's going to be illustrated by Amber Wren. The picture book is about X and Y who are determined to bake infinite pie with uber smart Aunt Z by using math to bake their way to success. Publication is slated for winter 2022.
Oh God, it's like a nightmare. It's like my math homework come to life.
I know,
living in my brain
with infinite pi, because math pi. For those who don't know math, yeah,
because pi is a number that goes on to infinity.
Yeah,
3.141. How many digits of pi can you memorize? I have three digits of pi. That's my limit right there.
I've thrown out all math knowledge the moment I entered college, so I don't know.
All right. Next up, Knopf has acquired at auction world rights to Everyone Loves Lunchtime But Zia and its sequel by Jenny Liao and illustrated by Dream Chen. The author's debut picture book follows Zia, a Chinese-American girl who learns to appreciate her heritage when she brings foods from her culture to school. Publication is planned for spring 2023. Maybe it's Ja? I'm iffy on the pinyin there, but looks like it's a spin on the lunchtime story, hopefully with a more positive spin.
I mean, everyone knows that we have the best food, so...
Yeah, hopefully kids these days are more enlightened, right? So we don't get as much lunchtime moments as we did
Asian
before.
snacks too. I feel like kids nowadays, they like love Asian snacks, like bring on the shrimp chips and like the Pocky and like the rice cookies.
Yeah. They've seen the light.
Or their parents have seen the light. All right, so next up, Random House acquired 2 untitled middle grade novels by Tay Keller, the author of the 2021 Newbery Medal-winning novel, When You Trap a Tiger. The first story is told from the perspectives of 3 friends, each asking big questions about their identity and future. Their quest to find a mysterious book soon leads them to realize that answers and friendship are rarely ever easy. Publication of the 2 novels is set for 2023 and 2024.
Next up, Page Street Kids acquired world rights to The Best Kind of Mooncake by debut author-illustrator Pearl Ouyang, with Kayla Tosteven editing. Based on a true story, this picture book centers on the arrival of a hungry stranger at a street market community in British-occupied Hong Kong. Publication is scheduled for fall 2022.
Ooh.
Wow. Lots to
Period
unpack
piece.
there. Yeah, I wonder how much they'll go into the whole, British occupation, colonialism, imperialism thing. But mooncakes are always good too.
What is your opinion of the best kind of mooncake? What makes a good mooncake for you?
I'm kind of boring. I like a standard mooncake and just like red bean paste in the middle. I don't like the salted egg. I know some people do, but I don't like salted egg in my mooncake.
How dare you? No, like I've never had a mooncake before, or like the Chinese traditional mooncake before, so I don't have an opinion. All right. Next up, Amazon 2 Lions bought world rights at auction to Ani Dreams of Biryani, written by Namita Mulani Mehra and illustrated by Chaya Prapat, plus a second untitled picture book by the author. Set in Little India, the first picture book follows a cooking-obsessed girl who is determined to uncover the secrets to the best biryani recipe in the world. Publication is set for summer 2022.
Man, biryani sounds real good right now.
Oh my God, I'm so hungry. I have not eaten lunch yet, so... Of course, all Asian books have really good food descriptions, so... bad decision on my part.
Next up, in a 4-book deal, Scholastic Branches bought world rights to Pet's Rule, written by Susan Tan and illustrated by Wendy Tan Xiaowei. In this early chapter book series, a chihuahua named Ember has grand plans for world domination and assembles a group of minions made up of other pets to help him rule the neighborhood. Publication of the first book is slated for summer 2022. I'm getting
It's
like
kind of-
Pinky and the Brains vibe
Yeah.
from this.
It kind of reminds me of like Cats versus Dogs. I don't know if you've ever seen that horrible movie, but it's about like cats who are trying to dominate the world, and the dogs are part of like this like secret organization that are kind of like CIA, and they try to stop the cats from dominating the world. So kind of reminds me of that.
But now it's reversed. The dog is trying to take over the world.
Of course, it's a Chihuahua. It's always going to be like the smallest dog that wants to take over the world.
It's kind of like picking the brain. They kind of look like small rats, right? Like little rat dogs. I just offended
We apologize
all Chihuahua
to all.
lovers.
We apologize to all Chihuahua lovers. So next up, Knopf has acquired at auction world rights for How We Say I Love You, written by debut author Nicole Chen and illustrated by Lenny Wen. In this picture book, a Taiwanese-American girl's family expresses the love they feel for each other through their actions, rather than through their words. Publication is slated for fall 2022. Yes, to this. How we say I love you, Asian families, we often do not say I love you verbally.
I mean, so my family is pretty affectionate, which I realize now is not the norm, apparently.
Yeah, same here. Like, I mean, with my parents, they say I love you often.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of Korean families say I love you often. Maybe it's just like
I don't know.
It depends on what kind of Asian you are.
Yeah, I wonder what it is about, because the story is around enough that it is a trope and it is like generally accepted stereotype for Asian families, but it's just not my experience. But I do know it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's good for like kids to learn that their parents do love them, and just because they don't say "I love you" like their other children in their class, like yeah, I think it's good to have like a reference saying, "Hey, it's okay." Like your parents still love you, even though they don't say it verbally.
Yeah, it's like the seventh love language or the sixth love language, which is nonverbal food.
It's not "I love you," it's "Have you eaten?"
Pretty much. All right. Next up, Fable and friends bought Don't Fall in Love, as well as a second untitled novel from Adiba Jagadar, author of The Henna Wars. This pun-filled YA contemporary romance follows Shireen, a Bangladeshi Irish girl still healing from a breakup with her ex-girlfriend, and who can think of nothing better to do than to win the Junior Irish Baking Show, a British bake-off style reality competition, even if it means competing against her ex and another contestant she may be falling for. Publication is set for spring 2023 and spring 2024, respectively.
10 out of 10 for the title, Don't Fall in Love. I love cooking competitions in books, and I used to really love Great British Bake Off until some political stuff happened in that show. So I am excited to read this book, especially since it's also a romance. And it's a queer romance, too.
Yeah, it sounds messy, which always bodes well for these stories, right?
That's true. There's a lot of meltdowns in like cooking competitions.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, Orchid has bought world rights in an exclusive submission to The Little Old Lady Who Ate Leftovers by Melissa de la Cruz and illustrated by Primo Gallanosa. Inspired by the Aswang vampires of Filipino mythology, de la Cruz's picture book debut follows Doña Esmeralda, a little old lady who has to eat children's leftovers until she's had enough of scraps and decides to eat everything in her path. Publication is set for summer 2022.
Ooh. Seems kind of dark, huh?
I mean, vampires. Yeah. And a lot of fairy tales and folk tales have like dark themes, and this is based on Filipino mythology. I know that there's a lot of monsters in Filipino mythology. So
yeah, congrats to Melissa on the new book. Next up, Barefoot Books has bought world rights to Zara's Blessing, a Ramadan story by Shirin Shamsi and illustrated by Manal Mirza. When Zara sees the Ramadan moon, she wishes for a sister, but she never dreams that volunteering with her mother at a refugee center might help her wish come true. Publication is slated for spring 2022.
Happy Ramadan to everyone. I mean, as of this recording, Ramadan is still happening.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Little Brown has acquired As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Kato. Pitch for fans of The Book Thief and Salt to the Sea, the speculative YA novel set amid the Syrian Revolution follows Salama Kassab, a teenager who must learn to see the events around her for what they truly are, not a war, but a revolution, and decide how she, too, will cry for Syria's freedom. Publication is scheduled for fall 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, like we've read like the map of Salt and Stars, and that was about like Syrian refugees. I'm glad that we're getting another book by an author of Syrian descent. I think we definitely need more of those.
Yeah. So our last book deal is Putnam acquired North American rights to City of Orange by David Yoon, the author of Frankly in Love. Yoon's first adult novel is an intimate tale about a man who wakes up alone and injured in a post-apocalyptic landscape and must find his way home. No publication date yet, but congrats to David Yoon on his first adult novel.
This sounds grim and kind of terrifying. Probably not a good read for the pandemic, but the pandemic will be over by 2022 and 2023.
Hopefully.
It'll be a book about how we can celebrate how we got past an apocalyptic event in our economy.
Yeah. And yeah, those are the new publishing deals for April 2021. Let's move on to some book news. We had a couple stories come out over the last few weeks. So, Rira, what's our first story?
All right. So our first story is Stacey Lee achieved her first New York Times bestseller with the paperback edition of The Downstairs Girl. And we've talked about Stacey Lee on this podcast several times. She is the queen of Chinese American history novels, particularly for middle grade and young adult. The Downstairs Girl is about a Chinese American woman in Georgia, I think in the 1850s. I don't remember the exact date, but it was really cool because it's an actual Asian person in a Southern belle town, and you don't really see that in media.
Yeah.
So it took her 6 years to become a New York Times best-selling author. How dare they?
Yeah.
How does that happen? She's such a prolific author, and I don't know. She's paid her dues. I can't believe it took her this long to get that recognition.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the specifics on how these lists work, but, I assume there's a lot of under the table stuff going on with whenever it comes to promoting media, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of marketing has to come through. How are people supposed to know about your book, and how are critics supposed to review your books without having access to it? So there's a lot of politics and yeah.
I know we talked before we started recording that we're not going to go too deep into the Twitter drama, but this has been a topic of conversation in the world of Asian American book literature, or people of color book Twitter in general, which is the disparity between promoting books by, let's say, white authors and non-white authors.
Yeah, and just I don't really want to go too in deep about it, but just how unwelcoming the publishing landscape can be to BIPOC authors, especially debuted BIPOC authors. There's been whispers about how a lot of influential white authors, they would have a secret chat where they would pretty much dunk on BIPOC authors and really just degrade and diss their work. And that's really sad to me that, it's I can understand the industry, the publishers and the editors, but having fellow authors who know how hard it is to get published, how to get represented, even if they are non-marginalized, why would you do that? Why would you punch down? It just baffles me that someone thinks that is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also this issue of non-Asian authors taking from our culture and profiting off of it, and just not giving back to the community at all. I can list a couple of authors on the top of my head. I'm not going to mention them, but they have written some really problematic stuff on Asian American culture and a lot of stereotypes that are wrong, and just blatantly saying that they are doing this for representation. And it's how dare you do not represent us. You don't know our struggles, and even if you do, it's from secondhand information, and you need to know that we're not a monolith. And just the idea of there was this idea of if you don't like the book, if you find it problematic, just don't read it. And I say, fuck no to that. And I think a lot of people agree with me that now it's like enough is enough. Like these problematic children's books, they kind of foster early systemic racism. And, like we just have to do better as like a publishing industry. And BIPOC voices deserve to be uplifted, not just when tragedy happens, not just when people get murdered. It's really unfortunate that, like, after the Atlanta shootings, I was really glad that there were reading lists that were being shared. I'm really glad that our Stop Asian Hate reading list got shared a lot. But I really hate the fact that it just took a tragedy for people to actually notice us. And just like looking on social media, a lot of that support is evaporating. And it just feels like everything is going back to the way it was. And our voices are just not, it's just going back to being like ignored.
Yeah.
Or at least like not considered like an important problem.
I think, yeah, I think we see this a lot. Support comes in waves, and this, for better or worse, our pop culture is based all around trends, right? It's what's hot right now, and I think the challenge for like culture makers is to how do we make it so that diverse stories are just standard, right? When can we when can we stop calling them diverse? When can we just call them American stories or normal stories about people? It's easy to think that we've made so much progress because, like, compared to maybe like a decade ago, there are a lot more options now. But if you look at the big picture, we're still just a drop in the bucket, right? Like, we go through our book news every month, and there's so many book deals coming out, and it feels like there's a lot. But really, like, when you actually go in and you're pulling these stories, it's like every 1 out of every 10 is what we're pulling from, right? It feels like there's a lot, but it's still just like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, like I also collect new releases for work. So I know what is coming out like almost every week, depending on how busy I am. And there'll be like maybe 1 or 2 titles by an Asian author out of that list. And they're like 95% of the time in like the children's and like YA genres. And it's like, where are all of the adult books? Where are all of the literary works by authors of color, by Asian authors? And when I do see them, it's like, I don't know. I don't want to say typical, but they're issue books or they're like multi-generational sagas. And of course, I love books like Pachinko, for example. And I think it's really important to have those books. But at the same time, like if that is the only type of story that I'm seeing like every week or every month, I guess, because not every week those types of books come out, that is a problem. And I think Leon Lowe did a survey last year, and it was like 4% of books that were published in the last like 5 years were by authors of color. And then I think it was like 2%. That was like actually people who were like, I don't think it was even like Asian authors. I think it was just non-Black authors. And that's just like a travesty. Like how like you would think that things have gotten better, but it's only
marginally, right? It's just
marginally. And I hate the fact that they're like the idea that diversity is a trend. It's like, oh, like you guys are so hot right now because own voices and diverse books, they like have so many resources. And it's like, yeah, we have those resources because they didn't exist earlier and there was a need for them. And for like non-BIPOC authors to try and creep into that space, trying to profit off of saying like, this is an own voices work, this is a diverse work because there's a character who is not white. And it's like, that's not the definition of an own voices work. But they get all of the marketing and support from big publishers. And I don't know. It's just that one male white author who shall not be named, who said that he researched his book by eating Pocky and sleeping with like a volume of Akira, the manga, and just like watching a lot of Akira Kurosawa movies. I'm just like, that's not research.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think the bar was lower back then, right? Like, wasn't the story that the writers of Disney's Aladdin did their market research by going to like an Arabic like trade show or something?
But this author is like, the interview that he said all of this was like back in like 2015.
Oh.
Not even like that long ago.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
It's pretty bad. And just, I don't know, like,
yeah. And it's not an easy problem to solve because it's so entrenched institutionally. It's not just we need more writers, we need more people in publishing, we need more people in marketing, we need more people making those decisions on who and what and where and why to publish. I'd like to think our podcast is helping a little bit by, providing an outlet or providing, some a critical voice. Like, I hesitate to say critical voice because I don't think anything I say on this podcast can be even remotely considered as criticism.
Same here.
But, I think there's a reason why we felt a need to do this podcast, and it's because there are so many authors that we want to highlight, that we want to at least let people know that these books exist. Because, for us, that 1 out of 10 publishing announcement is like our everything, right? It's what we're here for.
Yeah, and a lot of these publishing deals are from like the children's rights report on Publishers Weekly. And for a lot of like we've talked about this before, but a lot of these authors are writing books that they didn't have when they were children, and that is why they are writing them.
Yeah.
And to them, and to also like authors who are from to readers who are in the same background, it is their everything. It can be world changing for them. Sorry that we actually, no, I don't apologize. This was a very important discussion. I wish we could go more in depth with it, but I feel like we need to bring someone like Ellen O and like other authors from like the Asian Author Alliance to talk with us about the subject, because they are professionals and they probably have more inside information.
Yeah, we probably should bring them on the show. I'll make a note. Bring smart people on show to talk about smart stuff.
Bring people who actually know their stuff.
All right. Our next piece of news is adaptation news, actually. Park Chan-wook, the director of The Handmaiden and Old Boy, has signed on to direct a TV adaptation of Viet Thanh Nguyen's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Sympathizer. The adaptation is produced by A24 and Rhombus Media.
I screamed when I heard about this because Viet Thanh Nguyen tweeted about this before the Deadline article came out, and
he broke embargo.
I mean, Deadline wasn't fast enough. What were they doing? But I'm so excited because Park Chan-wook is like one of my favorite directors ever. I love The Handmaiden. It's probably one of my favorite movies. Just like the way that the story structure is in that movie, and just like how masterful the like editing and just like everything about that movie is just so well crafted. And Old Boy, obviously, it's a classic. It's been remade in America. It's really bad. Don't watch it. So I really believe that he could do the adaptation of The Sympathizer really well, because he understands like dark themes, and he's done a period piece. So he seems to have like everything to make this work.
I think it's good that the author is on board as well. Neither of us are Vietnamese, so we can't speak to how we feel about a non-Vietnamese director directing the series. But Park Chan-wook does have the bona fides and the, I guess, artistic sense to really make the series like stand out. I think those align really well, and the author himself is super excited about it. So yeah, I mean, I think it bodes well. Still, there's no details on what the series is going to be like, who's being cast in it, but it's cool to see like our prestige books being adapted on the screen. You know, we're still waiting on more news from the Pachinko adaptation. I'm so excited about the fantasy books that I read that are being adapted, like Jade City and Poppy War.
Yeah, Poppy War got picked up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a lot of like Asian works that are being adapted right now, and pretty soon that means more Asian actors, more Asian directors.
Hopefully. I mean,
Hopefully.
I don't see them whitewashing The Sympathizer. I don't know how they can do that. But for the
No.
fantasy ones, I'm like, okay, I know they should know better. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, there's still a chance they might.
The thing about like The Sympathizer, like we've talked about this before, how like the Vietnam War being told from like a Western perspective, an American perspective, it's very different from how Vietnamese people view the war.
Yeah.
And considering that this is an American production, like I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because Viet Thanh Nguyen is going to be involved. And you have Park Chan-wook, who is Asian but not Vietnamese. Like, we understand like colonization and we understand like Western imperialism. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's like if you think about all of the movies and like the musicals that came out that, you know, is set in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, this is very much needed in that canon of like literature and TV and movies.
We need the anti-Miss Saigon, the anti-Apocalypse Now, the anti-Rambo 2. Was 2 of the one in Vietnam? I don't remember. All right. And our last story of the day is breaking news as of today's recording. We're recording on Tuesday, April 13th. The 2021 Hugo Awards have been announced. And as we do every year, we're going to go down and highlight the Asian and Asian Americans that have been nominated. So let's go down the list. So our first nomination comes from Best Novella, which is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo, which is also a Books and Boba book club pick.
Yeah, I really liked that novella. So
I forgot that was last year because didn't the second book already come out too? The second novella from that series?
I don't remember. I just know that Nevo is working on a full-length novel, and it's like an Asian twist on The Great Gatsby.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so next we have for Best Short Story, The Mermaid Astronaut by Yoon-ha Lee. Yoon-ha Lee is the author of the Nine Fox Gambit series and also the I think it's a standalone. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not. But they're the author of Dragon Pearl, which is a middle grade sci-fi book.
Yeah. We haven't touched Nine Fox Gambit yet because I worry that it might be because I've heard it's pretty dense in terms of sci-fi.
I've read it, and I don't think I can discuss it on the show. I am not smart enough. I can read pretty fast, and that book took me days to just get through because I was like, what is happening? I am not a hard sci-fi person. You might like it though, Marvin. It might be your jam.
I have it on my bookshelf. I just haven't opened it up yet. But yeah, congrats to Yoon-ha Lee. Also nominated for Best Short Story is A Guide for Working Breeds by Veena Jemin Prasad, which was part of a short story collection about robots. So congrats to Veena as well for the nomination.
All right, next name that I see on this list is for Best Series, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang.
Yeah, that's the one I'm rooting for because that's the only series on this list that I've read. Congrats to Rebecca on her nomination because last year she was nominated for the Astounding Award, which is not a Hugo, but now she can officially say Hugo nominated author R.F. Kuang.
Yes.
Also nominated once again for Best Graphic Story or Comic is Monstrous Volume 5 by Marjorie Liu, illustrated by Sana Takeda. I'm pretty sure Marjorie has won this award for like the last, since this podcast has been a thing, Marjorie Liu has won this award, right?
Since like 2016, yeah. Obviously cheering on Marjorie to win again.
Yeah.
Let's not break that streak.
There's some tough competition this year, though. There's a Octavia Butler adaptation. Yeah. But Monstrous still strong. I need to catch up on Volume 5, but Monstrous was one of our first book club picks, and we know how to pick them, right, Rira?
Sure.
For Best Dramatic Presentation, long form, we have Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, which was directed by Kathy Yan and written by Christina Hodson, two Asian American women. So congrats to them on the nomination. Have you seen Birds of Prey?
No, I have not.
It's
I feel
really
like
good.
I haven't watched any TV, Marvin.
You
I've
should
just
check
been
it out.
watching murder documentaries and and like late night shows. So yeah.
Yeah. For Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form, which is TV, we have The Expanse, Gaugamela. The Expanse, of course, is showrun by Naren Shankar, who is a South Asian veteran of sci-fi television. For Best Editor Long Form, we have Diana M. Pho and Sarah Guan. For Best Professional Artist, we have Rovina Tsai. And those are the highlights from the Hugo nominations for 2021. Good luck to all of the nominees and congratulations. And yeah, with that, that'll do it for this episode of Books and Boba. Rira, as always, thank you for compiling all the great book news from all around the internet for us to report on. Rira, what are we reading for April 2021?
We are reading How to Pronounce Knife, a short story collection by Suvankam Thamavansa.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that book at the end of the month, so please read along. And if you finish, let us know what you think on Goodreads. All right. Thank you for joining us for our mid-month book news review for April 2021. We'll be back next week with an author interview with Mia P. Manasala, the author of Arsenic and Adobo. So please look forward to that.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rira Yu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.